Uh, Today, we will be talking a bit about character design and more precisely, character design and the considerations that are made into designing a character, like who is the target audience, what is the setting and genre of the story, who is the character protagonist or the antagonist, what is the role of the character in the story, what is the backstory of the character, what is the character's interaction with other characters in the story, how do they talk, what is their body language, and finally what is their visual appearance. Hi, also we have Harshal Patil with us. He's back back for another video. He is a transportation and automobile designer and has transitioned to more of an entertainment designer. And today we will be talking a bit about character design and more precisely character design and the considerations that are made into designing a character. Can you tell me what is it that excites you really when it comes to character design? So, like everybody, I have been also been a fan of movies and anime and cartoons from a very young age. And all we have seen and remember as our fond memories is those characters from our childhood to our adulthood. We aspire to be better than ourselves, and maybe I think that's why humans love characters so much and the stories that the characters go through. And it somehow gives us spiritual satisfaction in a way that well, at least we are not the characters themselves, we are not in that tough situations, or we don't have those superpowers, but we can aspire to be, and we can look at the characters and put ourselves into their shoes and enjoy the works of art that is storytelling, which has been here for thousands of years. How do you define character design, and why is it crucial in storytelling? So, a character is a central instrument of a storytelling product, whether it be a game or a movie or an animation. And the character is what your audience is going to latch onto and experience the whole story, the adventure of the story. And that is why character design is the central thing of any entertainment design project. And the character should be iconic in such a way that it represents the story and the adventure and makes it better. I think the steps that we take in designing a character is really important, and that is what also I wanted to ask you, and let the audience also know about the considerations that go into it. Yeah. And one of the first things is about the target audience. Yeah. So how is your process for that? Yeah, so for any work of art, there will be a target audience. Sometimes it can be little kids, just like we saw cartoons in our young age. Then there will be high school students or young adults, and then mature stories. Right? So each of the audience has their own requirements, their own likes and dislikes, and that plays a huge influence, huge importance in how you design the character so that it appeals to your target audience. So different characters in beat movies, animation, yeah, it they all have their genres, subgenres, yeah, the settings, time period. Could you tell me more about that? Yeah, so a story's setting could be a mythology setting, it could be something of the past, or maybe it could be far in the future. So the setting of the story is going to play a huge role into how your character looks and feels, how the world around the character looks and feels. And as the genres and stories and settings are generally already established as tropes, people expect you to follow certain standards. If it's a sci-fi story, for example, you have to have sci-fi weapons and vehicles and the costume and different gadgets with the story and the character. So that is an expectation, and as character designers, we have to put it in the center of our design process. So I just building upon this, if you are to create something new and bring in a new experience which kind of breaks the norms, but at the same time, you told as you told, we need to stick to that.
It has to be relatable
Yes.
in a sense.
So how is your process in this the setting genre played for example relating to your graphic novel that you are developing?
Yeah. So whatever story and character you are creating, it should feel relatable and something familiar, but also it should be fresh. It should be new, and the adventures and the experiences should be new with the characters and the story itself. So as designers, we have to do more research into the setting and the genre of the story, more technological research if it is sci-fi, and more research in terms of the setting, and that gives us more instruments to play with, more ideas to explore, and our process widens, and we are able to bring new things into the world.
That is very well said. Now the one of the most interesting parts of any story, be it a game, animation, movie,
Yeah.
the heroes and the villains,
Yes.
the protagonists and the
antagonists,
antagonists.
yes.
What's your take?
So, a story is more interesting if the villain is more powerful,
Exactly.
more stylish, and a antagonist is a challenger to the protagonist. So, the bigger the challenge, the more your hero has to work to overcome that challenge, and the bigger the task, the bigger the emotional impact of the resolution of the story. So a good antagonist plays a huge role in a good entertainment project, and that's why a villain has to have that dynamism, that charisma. At the same time, the villain has to be dangerous, more unhinged if it can, and that's what makes the hero be better. Because if the hero doesn't have much growth in the story, then the story doesn't work. So for the hero, it has to be a bigger journey, a bigger achievement to accomplish to defeat the villain, and that makes the resolution of the story more satisfying.
And especially in character design, I think you're not only designing this one character.
Yes.
As you were saying, the hero and villain and the backstories, the origins, where do they come from, and have they gone to college? Have they gone studied
Yes.
to school? I think all of these are big considerations that you have to take, and so beyond the surface, how do you incorporate character's behavior and his traits? What's your process of
Yeah,
this?
yeah. So a backstory of a character, be it hero, villain, or side characters, helps audience to empathize with the character more if it's a hero, and understand the villain more if it's a villain. So and secondly, it also helps designers to design the look of the character that describes their history, their backstory, and that adds more value, more realism to the character. That is why the backstory of the characters is very important. And for example, your protagonist might have a scar on the face, which tells that they have had a big fight in the past and they are used to fighting. So same goes for the villain. They might have skulls maybe with them of the people they have killed in the past. So that adds more information to the character, and that helps audience understand subliminally what the character has been through and what they are capable of doing.
I think all of this, as an ideal audience, I have to feel anticipated.
Yes.
To just be blown out of my mind with every next scene, and I wait for such stories to play out in front of me in any of this, whether it's animation, again, a movie,
Yeah.
or a game, that I wait with anticipation to know what happens in the next few seconds.
Yes.
And I think this what you explained rightly kind of covers that, and also it again relates to the relationship between the characters, how they interplay between each other and with the world, right?
Yes.
So what's your take, and you know your perspective on that.
Yeah. But I think, as you rightly said, it's all about the journey. The audience is there for the journey, right? They want to see your character evolve, devolve, fall, stumble, and then rise up again and face the challenges that they are in the story. And most of all, as we are all humans, we understand that we cannot achieve big things without support. So the characters that are there with the hero could be the friends or the partner of the hero, and these characters are going to play an important role in helping your character go through the journey and come to a successful resolution. That's why the journey of the character, the other characters, and how your hero interacts with other characters, it sets up a pace for the story and makes the audience understand what your character is inside, right? How they feel about other people, are they likable, are they not likable, and how those the decisions they make with the other characters, it plays a role in understanding, for the audience to understand your character and see their journey completed. So the other characters and the relations of your character with the other characters is a crucial part of the story itself. And as character designers, let's say if you are making a team of characters who are tackling a challenge, right? So the other characters should be complementary to your main character, and so on.
All right.
Same goes for the villain, right? The henchmen of the villain.
Exactly.
They have to be as dangerous as the villain, and they should put up a big challenge to the characters which are on the protagonist side, and this is what makes into a great spectacle and a more satisfying story in the end. Any entertainment product, let it be an animation movie, a video game, or a Hollywood movie or a Bollywood movie, right? Any kind of movie, the greatest asset of that entertainment product is the immersion, right?
Yeah.
So as audience, they should be immersed into the story. So the world of the story, the characters of the story itself should be so immersive that people are hooked, right? As character designers, it's our responsibility that the design that we put for our characters adds to the immersion of the story, right? So the weapons they are carrying or the outfit they are wearing, it should seem real. Even if it's a fantasy setting, the immersion should be there. The immersion is only there when the audience believes that whatever is happening in front of me has real consequences.
Yes.
So that brings the immersion, and character designer's job is to design a character who maintains the immersion and at the same time is so iconic that will stay in the memory of the characters for so long.
Yes.
So I'll ask the audience itself, who is your favorite character? Try to remember them.
You can add them in the comments.
Comments itself.
And do write to us. Whatever you think are the greatest characters that you have experienced.
Yeah. So whatever characters you love with all your heart have been designed by someone,
Yes.
right? And they are a fictional character, but at some point in your life when you saw the story, you believed they were real, right? So that is what immersion is. And as a designer, it's your job to add the visual elements and go with the story aspect itself. So it should be a seamless blend between the story and the design of the character, and that is what creates the immersion, and that is what makes the journey so satisfying.
This is the part where we get to from pen to pixel. So next is we'll discuss briefly about how whatever we have gone through, when we have built up this much about the character, how do we pen them, or how do you kind of create them visually and represent them to something what every audience kind of sees, right?
Yes.
So please do enlighten us about that.
Yes. So if you are aspiring to be a character designer, then just go back into your memory and imagine and remember all the iconic characters that you have seen and loved in the past, and think about how they acted, how they walked, how they talked, how they looked, what kind of clothes did they wear. So all of those things were important for those characters, so for you to remember, right? And as character designers, you need to understand the basics. There is a requirement of skills, understanding the expressions, facial expressions, understanding body language, understanding the look and feel, and how style plays into a role, into a development of a character, and to use your memory as a tool to understand and imagine new characters, right? So that is visualization. And the hard skills that you required is something that like human anatomy. If you like creating animal characters, you need to know animal anatomy. If you like creating robots, you need to know how robots work.
Yes.
So it's just part of personal research. And then you practice drawing. You practice drawing different poses of the character. You practice drawing different facial expressions of your character. That is one thing. After you have a good sketch of your character, you then put color to those sketches, and you, like, from your memory again, try to remember characters and what color clothes did they wear. For example, Superman wears red and blue, right? So that is a big part of your memory, right? For that character. So you choose colors that will be memorable for someone else.
So Harshal, we discussed about all setting up everything about the character, bringing the character, in constructing everything about the world, the characters, the objects, and setting.
Yeah.
Now, how do you bring such a character to life? How do you put from mind to pen to pixel?
Yeah.
What's your process on that?
Yeah. So before you start sketching your character, you need to be able to visualize the character better in your head. So if you take an example of a sci-fi setting, you have to have some technological research upon what kind of products, vehicles, guns, whatever things, tools the characters carry. What is the technology? That is the research part.
Okay.
Then comes the story of the character, the backstory of the character, and the whole setting, how the world looks and feels like. Is it a dark world or is it a more positive world? So you imagine the world, imagine a character in your world, apply the research that you have done to the character, and all of these factors will help you visualize the character better inside your head. If you feel something is missing, then you can add more details into the story and think about the dynamics of the characters with the antagonist, with other characters, and then try to visualize the character again. Once you create a good picture in your head, you can take your pen in your hand and start sketching the character, and you'll get to your perfect version of your character faster if you can visualize the character better.
How did you start penning it down and then creating pages of the comic?
Yeah. So yes. So character design is an iterative process. So as I said in the earlier question, if you have a visualization, a visual of the character in your head, you start sketching, and you start going back to the story, going back to the research, and think and imagine whether this character represents what was your original thought in a better way. And if it doesn't, then you draw it again, right? You create more iterations, you change the hairstyle of the character, you change the facial expressions, you change the tools that they carry, change the color of the dress. All the small things like that add to the personality of the character, and you create new iterations which are better than before, with more information and more data as you go forward.
So Harshal, you are taking the character design course for the students right now, and I saw you create a character in class for the demo session. So
Yes.
Tell the audience a bit about it, and I think we can also showcase that to them.
Yeah. So for the students, I wanted to create a quick character who displays all the good things that go into a character design, and that's why I created this character whose name is TriStar Captain Dasha. And she's into the future. She's traveling into the space, and she's basically a commander, a captain of the army, which ventures into the space and uh, attacks aliens and wins battles. And that's why I put her in a spacesuit so that she can go into different planets, different areas of space, and she can get the job done. So the considerations that I've made into the design of the character, I'll just explain them briefly. So she has a gun, which is an ionizer gun. So it's a future-based technology which can be used against aliens. So it has to look, the gun has to look and feel different, which is the considerations that I've made in the design. She's wearing a full body suit, showing that she can travel into space and still be safe. She's carrying a gauntlet, which is not originally part of the design of the character. It looks slightly different. So it adds intrigue to the character, that where did she get it and what kind of powers does it have. So that makes the character more interesting and kind of adds a backstory to the design of the character. Again, she has a jetpack which helps her to travel into space or fly around on a planet, and like helps her to complete her missions. So these are the considerations. Also, her face, her expressions, and her hair looks more confident, and she has to be a femme fatale. So I gave her facial expressions like that and body language like that.
Okay. Any tips for someone who is jumping into character design as a beginner? What
Yes.
would you say?
So this will be also a good point to sum up all the things that we have talked about today. So any entertainment project is about the journey of the character. So and as we can see the design of the character that I've made here, the design of the character conveys the journey of the character. Like she has been to some places, she has got new things from those places, and she's prepared for more adventures, and she's more confident into the outlook that she has about these places and the enemies that she has to fight. So when somebody aspires to become a character designer, they have to understand the journey of the character. Right? The setting is sci-fi, for like example here, and the setting, the genre is sci-fi, and the journey of the character is through the space to different planets to fight aliens and bring things and win wars. So if somebody can understand and visualize the journey of the character, they're in a good position to start designing. Yes.
And in that design parts, can you like quickly summarize how to physically go about it?
So to go about that, to design a character, one has to understand human anatomy or animal anatomy as per requirement.
As per requirement, yes.
So for that, one needs to look at references, sketch a lot, do live sketching,
Copying your favorite characters.
copying your
so
favorite
that
characters.
Get the hands moving.
Yes. Practice facial expressions.
Exactly.
And try to sketch objects like vehicles and guns and weapons like swords, right?
Even cups.
Even
I guess.
cups. So whatever your character carries. So when you are able to visualize and draw all of these things, you will intuitively start designing characters. And I think that is the greatest asset of a character designer. And that takes a lot of practice. But once you have that practice, you are free to jump into this world.
And I also think there are a huge number of videos that explain the process. I think better than me, and then a lot of artists from around the world. So you have immense number of tutorials on how to sketch, how to color, and all.
Yes.
But the initial thing is what we thought we should be talking about today. And I hope for someone who is looking into character design for any project, may it be your school project or a project that you are doing like a entertainment designer or for your product designer, may it be anywhere, but some of the considerations that they should be taking so that they can create better characters. And if especially for beginners, if you're aspiring, what all should you be thinking about? Those were some things that we really wanted to put out through this video. I hope it has been kind of a learning experience for someone, if you have listened and if you have understood some of the things that we were talking about. And once again, I thank you, Harshal, for being here.
Thank you for providing me this opportunity.
And talking to everyone. So if you have any doubts that you want to ask Harshal or me about anything, I think
Just post it down in the
yes,
comments and
post-
we'll definitely answer.
yes. Thank you, and see you later.
Godspeed.
Yes.